The air has a beautiful, languid aroma laced into it. The sky is a clear azure, the snow-capped mountains an accolade of beauty surrounding the beautiful alpine fields of the village Dewville. The roads that come to and from the village have scattered puddles, and one such puddle ripples from the running steps of a Karate kid dashing out of Dewville. Their hair tied into a ponytail, face shield pressed against their face, spheres slung across the back of their blue coat with an orange band that says in clear words, Police. The kid bolts across the field, panting from the sprint, trying to reach the bounty hunter encampment to the north of Dewville, racing against time. Grani appears at the mouth of the bounty hunter camp, set up in a cluster of dilapidated, abandoned buildings that Dewville hadn't used for years. She sees two bounty hunters standing over a young karate girl who is bound by ropes, blood running down her face, her lips chapped from no water for who knows how long. Grani pulls out her spear, making quick work of the two bounty hunters as they slump to the ground. Only a few strikes necessary to do so. Grani helps the woman out of the binds, carrying her on her back when she sees that the woman is too lightheaded and worn out. Before any other bounty hunters realize what had happened, Grani slinks away, returning to the village. While Grani's making her way to the village, some bounty hunters making their way back to their encampment realize that Grani had taken her hostage, and start hollering to chase after her. Grani quickly makes her way back into Dewville, finding a helpful older man corral her and the tired woman on her back into his house. Once inside, Grani puts the woman down, tending to her wounds and injuries. Bounty hunters make their way into the village now, scrambling to search for the missing pair, harassing villagers, roughing them up in their frustration with no answers coming up. One bounty hunter comes to the older man's door. The man answers, telling the bounty hunter that he's not seeing the missing pair. Bounty hunter leaves disgruntled like the rest of them. Grani finishes taking care of the woman she comes to know as Carol. Carol assumed Grani was a knight from Kazimierz, but Grani isn't even from Kazimierz. Instead, she's a mounted police officer from Victoria. Grani is a Karate girl, but her ancestors moved from Kazimierz to Victoria. Grani just happened to get the village's request for aid, and is here to help. Carol is relieved that her pleas for help were answered. She explains that the village is used to not getting help, since they're in such a remote location. The Knights of Kazimierz wouldn't come since Dewville is only Kazimierz by name. Dewville's isolation has made them take on a self-sufficient way of life. Not even catastrophes prove to be an obstacle, as much as they are for the rest of Terra. Carol also explains that the northern region of Kazimierz has been in turmoil and conflict for the last few years. The only way for bounty hunters to get to North Kazimierz is through the mountain pass that Dewville is in. This is why there's so many bounty hunters in Dewville, which isn't a problem usually. Dewville grew accustomed to this trap. But a month ago, some bounty hunters uncovered a knight's sarcophagus from the surrounding mountains, which had a chest of gold coins with it. At the mention of gold coins, Grani shows that she has one on her. Some bounty hunters tried to rough her up when she got to Dewville, so she took this from them. Carol says that because of the sarcophagus and chest of gold coins, a rumor began circulating. The ancient knights of Kazimierz were all buried with their riches near the land they once called home. Their souls protect these unmarked graves for all of eternity. Only those who fear not sacrifice and possess the true, dauntless bloodline of Kazimierz may open the path. The bounty hunters used to just come and go in the village, but now they got the idea that the villagers knew where the treasures were buried. Before Carol can continue explaining, bounty hunters return to the house, clamoring in frustration and getting impatient in their search. Grani decides that the two of them need to leave the village, so that the villagers don't get harassed anymore. The old man wishes them luck, asking Grani to take care of Dewville's chief. It's here that Grani realizes that Carol is Dewville's chief. Grani collects herself and opens the door, running through the village square to make as much of a commotion, grabbing as much attention of the bounty hunters as she can. Her spear parrying a few sword slashes that some of the keener hunters try to throw her way. The two make their way to the outskirts of the village. Knowing that the bounty hunters will see them as they run for the forest, Grani stops in one of the abandoned houses, near a deserted cornfield with a creek flowing by. Carol and Grani make their way up to the attic, and Carol continues explaining the situation. But first, Grani tells Carol that the request for aid she got did say that Dewville actually knew where the treasure was. Carol says that she put that in the request for help, hoping someone would come. even if it was just for the treasure. As long as they were coming to help Dewville, she didn't care who it was. The chief of Dewville not only knew where the treasure was, she had the key for it that was passed down from generation to generation. She couldn't tell Grani anything more for now though. Ever since hearing the rumor that the villagers knew where the treasure was, the bounty hunters destroyed the mills, the warehouses, even the electrical room that powered the village. To make matters even worse, they destroyed farmland, stealing the village's winter ration. Carol couldn't take it anymore, and that's why she gave herself up to the bounty hunters. If they knew that she was the one that knew where the treasures were, the villagers wouldn't be harassed. Grani is upset with Carol that she put herself in danger like that, but Carol said it was desperate, and she knew it was not a good solution. She just expresses her gratitude that Grani made it in time. Carol also says that she doesn't care that much about the treasure. She would rather have peace return to Dewville. Grani points out that if there's a lot of coin, Carol could hire a small army of mercenaries to clear out the bounty hunters. After their conversation, Grani thinks it might be time to leave the house and head for the forest. She tries to look up in the attic window, see if the bounty hunters followed them out here or if the coast was clear. But the window's too tall for her. Carol tries, and even for her, the window's too tall. Grani helps Carol up onto her shoulders to get a clear view, and right before Carol is able to look around, she gets startled by a shadowy figure jumping right by the window. Carol nearly fumbles back on Grani's shoulders, causing the police girl to fall. In her confusion, Carol looks back out the window, seeing the shadowy figure land on the empty farm field, and across from it was the bounty hunters looking for Carol and Grani. The shadowy figure is a woman with a long sword and a sleek navy black jacket that covers her body. She speaks in a strange tongue at the bounty hunter, Algerian. The bounty hunters of course have no idea what she is saying, and the captain of the bounty hunters rushes forward, sword held high as he aims to strike the woman. In a blink of an eye, he's blown back sky high, tumbling in the air before landing in the creek. All the bounty hunters, as well as Carol, have their eyes tracking and following his body as he crash lands with a splash. The woman clears her throat, realizing that she was speaking a language none of them could understand, and promptly asks, "Where is she?" The bounty hunters don't know who she's talking about. Scotty rushes forward with her sheathed blade, bluntly striking another bounty hunter into the air. This one flies towards the village. Now, the rest of the bounty hunters turn to flee, and scatter in all directions, except for a few who run towards the captain to help him out of the river. In the attic while this is all happening, Carol explains to Grani the woman what she looks like. Grani realizes it might be Scotty, someone she knows. But Grani is confused. The Karanta officer was sent here on the mission, not Scotty. Maybe it's another mission? Carol says that the bounty hunters are leaving, so Grani suggests that they take this chance to leave the village. The two walk down the attic, and Grani opens the door to the ground floor, smashing it into the face of a hidden bounty hunter. He screams in pain, but his partner shushes him, trying to make sure everyone stays quiet. Grani is surprised, but the two bounty hunters curtly explain that Scotty is a known, infamous bounty hunter. She even has the nickname Walking Catastrophe, known to have leveled entire cities. Grani is surprised to hear this about her co-worker, but the conversation is cut short as the bounty hunters hear Scotty step by the house. 5 steps that slowed for a moment. In front of the house, then away from the house. Once she was out of the empty field, bounty hunters breathed a sigh of relief, only to realize that Grani and Carol are the ones with them, the 2 girls they were chasing after. One of the bounty hunters lunges at Grani, but she already has her spear out, parrying the sword in his hand. In another fluid move, she pushes the length of her spear into the other bounty hunter, smashing him into the wall of the house. She grabs Carol by the hand, and they rush out of the house, entering the field, and seeing other bounty hunters that were coming out of hiding, now surrounding the dude. Grani holds her weapon out, and she could see the bounty hunters even release some Originium slugs to put the pressure on. Grani immediately drives a spear into one of the slugs, skewering it before slashing another one. Right as it seemed there was going to be no end to this fight, however, a large man suited in a full bomb suit tosses a flashbang into the field, telling Carol and Grani to cover their ears. They do so, and the rest of the field is left stunned, letting the girls and the large man make their escape into the forest. After a few minutes of running and disappearing into the forest, The trio can see none of the bounty hunters pursued them. Granny turns her attention to the big man, clearly distrustful of him. The big man sighs and starts taking off his gear. A giant saw, some ammo, and the rest of his explosives all around his feet as he holds his hand up. He admits he's a bounty hunter, but he doesn't want to force the girl to tell him where the treasure is. He'd rather just cooperate and get the treasure this way. He points out that Granny isn't a bounty hunter, so she doesn't know the full situation. There's a handful of different groups of bounty hunters that have converged on Dewville for the treasure. It's only a matter of time before it's found, rather than if it's found at all. The problem now is that when it is found, there's going to be a bloodbath and a power struggle between all the different groups, and Dewville might get wiped from the map as a result. Granny realizes that the situation is rather complicated, and asks the man what he can do to help. The man says he's experienced in building survival, cracking codes, dismantling traps, explosives. He can also fight, of course. It's only now that Granny finally asks for his name, and he calls himself Big Bob. Granny pulls Carol away to discuss what to do. Carol doesn't want to trust a bounty hunter, but Granny asks if Carol has even seen Big Bob before. Carol is sure that she has not seen him before, so Granny suggests that he might be someone they can rely on, and since he's not been seen before, he hasn't harmed any of the villagers. The situation is only going to get more complicated and worse. Carol asks about Scotty if she would help. Granny says she's honestly not sure. Scotty is a bounty hunter, and she seems to be after the treasure as well. Carol decides that she will trust Big Bob for now, but she won't tell him where the treasure is, only giving hints to string him along. Granny promises to keep Carol safe no matter what. The two return to Big Bob, agreeing that he would join them. Granny says that they need to head for Mount Torat. Big Bob says that they'll have to go through the northern part of the forest, which is where all the bounty hunters all camped at. Big Bob thinks he can get them through the forest without too much trouble though. Before they set off, however, Granny clarifies that there are conditions to them working together. Big Bob agrees, saying they need to figure out the shares of the treasure anyways. While they converse, one of the bounty hunter camps is active, the hunters grouping on the still-wet captain. The group is wondering if they're going to still keep looking for the two kids. The captain says they're useless now. Now that help is arriving for the village, they will have to try to find the treasure themselves. With the remoteness of the mountain pass, none of the other bounty hunter groups can call for help either, so this is their chance to gain the advantage in the oncoming chaos that's sure to come. The group then brings up their worry about Scotty. The captain says that the group knows the terrain better. They also have all of those traps laid out in the forest for her to stumble into. He's confident in their victory. The trio agree on the shares and conditions, and they set off towards Mount Torat. The forest has sparse vegetation, just covered in grass and some wildflowers, while the trees cast shadows on the three of them as they make their way. Big Bob eventually runs into a warning mark on a rock, pointing it out, saying that it's for traps. He has the two of them follow him in his exact footsteps, so as to not step on any traps accidentally. They make their way a little further deeper into the forest, and Big Bob starts pointing out traps as they come. An animal trap on a rope, a rolling log trap up on the ledge, and a spiked pitfall that Carol nearly fell into, just off the side of the trail that they're on. They continue on carefully, but Big Bob realizes that there's too many of these traps to navigate. He's going to have to disarm some. This slows their progress a little bit, but they eventually make it into the northern part of the forest. Now, Big Bob runs into a new marking, but it's a disconcerting one. It's a symbol drawn in blood. Reading it, he realizes he's never even seen this kind of marking before, but he thinks the symbol is referring to a monster. Granny realizes in her mind that this might be because of a certain coworker of hers. Sure enough, before anything else can happen, bounty hunters rush into the trio, heading south, and now Scotty approaches the three of them. Granny is delighted to see Scotty, but Scotty is indifferent. She realizes that the chief of Dewville had been with Granny this whole time, and demands Granny to give her the chief. Granny is confused, but refuses, after which Scotty swings a warning strike with her blade still sheathed. Granny took a step back from the blow, realizing that Scotty is serious. She tells Big Bob and Carol to run for it. They run north, trying to get away from Scotty, running past the branches of the trees, dodging them and jumping over fallen logs. As Scotty is giving pace. In fact, she's slowly catching up, even with the trio's head start. Carol is worn out already from the running, so Granny pulls her onto her back, carrying her. but this slows Grani down, just enough to have Scotty easily catch up to Grani. Right before Scotty is able to grab Carol off of Grani's back, however, capture nets fire out from hiding bounty hunters, all of them aimed on Scotty. The captain of the bounty hunters steps out, and his group starts to surround Scotty. Grani sets down Carol and vaults into the air, standing beside Scotty, cutting the capture nets off of her. Even with the conflict before, Scotty is still Grani's coat. The bounty hunters are surprised to see Grani defend Scotty, but they recover and continue surrounding the two of them. Grani tells Big Bob and Carol to run. Big Bob sees the opening and takes Carol with him to the east. At the same time, bounty hunter after bounty hunter lunges at Scotty and Grani. Scotty pummels one into the ground, her sword only now unsheathed as she slashes another bounty hunter, cleaving him in two. Each bounty hunter only costs Scotty a single strike as she continues tearing them down, one by one. Eventually, some of the bounty hunters break rank and flee, most of them also running eastward. Grani can see that Scotty can handle her own now. She leaves as well, chasing after the bounty hunters, looking for Big Bob and Carol. Eventually, she sees Big Bob fighting one of the bounty hunters, his leg cut open from a blade strike. Big Bob tells Grani to go after the rest. They had taken Carol. Grani immediately agrees and rushes to catch up. The group is caught by surprise, and Grani cleaves through the ones holding Carol with her spear. Then, she moves to incapacitate the rest of them with one side of her weapon. After the struggle, Big Bob catches up, seeing the bounty hunters all at Grani's feet. Grani has Big Bob sit down on a fallen log to tend to his wound. Big Bob refuses at first, mainly because he's infected, and the wound shows the rocks on his body. Grani says she doesn't care. She's from Rhode Island. Big Bob recognizes the name, but Carol is confused. She thought Grani was from Victoria. Grani explains that she did work in Victoria as a mounted police officer, but now she's a Rhode Island operator. Carol is also disturbed at seeing the rocks on Big Bob's leg, showing that he really is infected. Big Bob tells Carol to walk away, while Grani tends to the wound. The sounds of fighting echo in the forest, but otherwise the sun makes its way through the sky. It was high on its perch, but now is beginning to descend. Grani finishes tending to Big Bob's wound, at least stopping the bleeding. Big Bob takes this time to remark how he's surprised Grani isn't afraid of him being infected. Grani points out that a lot of her coworkers are infected. She can't even tell who is and who isn't infected without seeing their bodies in the showers anyway, so she doesn't really care. The trio make the rest of the way to Mount Torat, entering a cave tunnel and walking through it. At the other end of the tunnel was another section of the forest, and they would be closer to Mount Mordecai. Scotty's rampage with the bounty hunters now far in the distance. Walking through the cave, the footfalls echo. Big Bob and Grani muse about the rumors they had heard about Scotty. What they thought were embellishments seemed to really be true. She's a force to be reckoned with. Big Bob mentioned that she's in Victoria's bounty hunter, the same thing that the other bounty hunter had said before. He remarks that since she's after the treasure, the three of them are going to have a much harder time getting the treasure safely. Deeper into the tunnel, the trio could hear the dripping water falling off their stalactite alongside the footfalls. Big Bob's gait slowly becoming wavered as his injury didn't get better, but worse instead. Carol's worried about Dewville, but Big Bob thinks that Scotty's presence will actually ward bounty hunters away from the village, especially once they find the treasure and there's nothing left for them to fight over. Maybe Scotty will level the village in the process though. Grani says she doesn't think Scotty's after the treasure actually, and Rhode Island isn't about harming the innocent, so she would make sure Scotty didn't level Dewville for no reason. Big Bob questions if Rhode Island really is a helpful organization that takes care of infected. They hired Scotty. In fact, he questions what Rhode Island has really done for the infected at all. He's never seen them help anyone personally. Grani is left speechless for a while as they walk through the tunnel, getting closer to the exit. She is aware that Rhode Island's work is small and insignificant compared to the scale of the infected's plight. There are just too many people to help. She even says this much to Big Bob, who just takes it as further proof that Rhode Island is truly worthless. His anger and frustration about the treatment of infected becoming more and more clear. Grani insists that even though they can't help everyone, Rhode Island will still do whatever it can. Grani will also do the same thing as well. Big Bob can see that Grani believes in Rhode Island, which he calls a naive faith. He asks if she has that same faith in Scotty. Grani says that while she doesn't know what Scotty is actually after, Rhode Island trusts her, so Grani will trust her as well. Big Bob drops the topic and brings up how he's deadweight thanks to his leg. His gait now has a complete limp. as he struggles to put weight on his injured leg. Granny says that it's no big deal, as long as he didn't intend to take all the treasure for himself. Big Bob plays off the suspicion, saying that as long as he gets his share, he won't complain or think of trying to get all the treasure for himself. The mouth of the tunnel's exit is in view now, and Big Bob asks that if his intuition is correct, Mount Mordecai should be where the treasure is buried. Carol doesn't confirm that he's right, but she does say that there's a lot of caves up ahead. It would take any normal person days to search them all. For herself, she of course knew which cave had the treasure. Big Bob understands Carol's implication, promising that he wouldn't hand Carol over to Scotty or the bounty hunters. Crashing up to the mouth of the tunnel now, the trio saw a bounty hunter pull himself into the tunnel, clearly on the verge of death. Dying as a blade impales him in his back. Two reunion members, clad with their uniform and masks, step into the tunnel, now seeing the truth. Big Bob and Granny recognize that this is reunion members, and while Granny wants to run for it, Big Bob says they need to fight. The reunion grunts engage the two of them, slashing and striking against each other. The fight is extended and drawn out, and eventually the two grunts start to focus on Big Bob, trying to wear him out due to his injury. It's working. Big Bob knows this and tells Granny to take Carol and run. Granny tells Big Bob to catch up for his share of the treasure. Big Bob revs his saw in active defiance, trying to take down the reunion grunts as Carol and Granny flee into the forest. Once deeper into the forest, the two slow down, and Carol explains that Mount Mordecai is indeed where the treasure resides. Carol explains that it's the second cave halfway up the mountain. There's only one entrance, but even inside, there's a labyrinth of tunnels to navigate. Carol knows that the treasure is in the deepest part of the cave. Granny and Carol continue making their way to Mount Mordecai. They can hear sounds of fighting all around them, even an explosion that echoes in the distance. Carol says that she's scared, worried, but she knows that this is her duty. She needs to protect her village at all costs. The forest here has less vegetation, and the trees are more scattered as well. They are higher in altitude, and about to be even higher with the trek to the cave. The sun beats down on the bleak slope, the tree line having ended well below their destination. They can hear the sounds of fighting progressively getting closer and closer. Once they make it to the mouth of the cave, Granny tells Carol that she'll be staying to guard the entrance. Carol doesn't want to lose Granny at this point, but Granny reminds Carol her promise. No harm would befall Carol. It's Granny's duty to guard the cave. She recites a Victorian quote. Even with their hearts impaled by the enemy's blades, the king's knights still held on to their spears. Granny reminds Carol that while she's defending the entrance to the cave, Carol is doing the real work, getting the treasure. Carol reluctantly agrees to go into the cave, leaving Granny at the entrance. Granny stands tall, spear in one hand as she lets it stand near her. She covers her face with her hand to block out the harsh sunlight. The sounds of swords colliding, bounty hunters and grunts following from combat, continue to get closer and closer. But Granny is ready. Now at the edge of the tree line, Granny can see bounty hunters and Union locked in a brawl, steadily making their way up the slope of Mount Mordecai, but many of them halting there, deciding to end their battle on the spot if they could help. Other bounty hunters that aren't engaged with Reunion work their way around the large slope, reaching the tunnel unabated, until Granny stops them. Their surprise, as well as their tiredness from the ascent, leaves them defenseless to Granny's attacks. They tumble, roll down the slope, some incapacitated, others slain. Another batch makes the climb. Another batch follows. This time, though, one of them managed to skewer Granny in the face, cracking her face shield, the glancing blow causing her forehead to become wet with blood. She lifts the face shield, even throwing it to the ground in its damaged state, and she continues defending. Another batch. Another tumble. One after another, those that make their way to Granny get fended off. After another batch of bounty hunters make the climb, Granny hears a deep rumbling that happens right next to her. She loses her footing for a moment as she glances over, seeing Scotty blow a hole with her sheathed sword into the mountain, causing a new entrance to form. Bounty hunters begin to pour in that way, avoiding the Kuranta Guardian. Granny realizes she needs to retreat to protect Carol, but Scotty doesn't let her do so. As the bounty hunters scramble, fighting each other and making their ways deeper into the cave network below, the two confront each other in the cave's entrance, one last time. Scotty asks where Carol is. Granny refuses to answer. Scotty points out that she's not the only one after that thing. She tells Granny to cooperate, or else she will have to use force. Granny still refuses, demanding that Scotty explains what her goal even is. Scotty lifts her sheathed blade, asking if Granny intends to impede a Rhode Island mission. Grani is confused, now wondering if Scotty really is on a mission. Scotty uses Grani's confusion to throw a feint. The hit smacks into the cave's floor, echoing with a dull thud. Scotty gives Grani one last chance to take her to kill. Grani still refuses, drawing her spear up this time. The two exchange a single blow with their weapons. Grani is pushed into the wall of the cave, the difference in strength power. Scotty remarks that Grani cannot protect Carol like this. Grani says it doesn't matter if she can or cannot. She will protect Carol. Some of the bounty hunters at this point make their way through the other entrance, see Scotty, and decide that they want to fight the living catastrophe and Grani. Some crossbow bolts and capture nets fly through the air. The duo dodge with ease, but the bounty hunters move up to the cave entrance where they stand. Grani takes this chance to vault over them, landing on the other side of the bounty hunter, dashing off into the cave, leaving Scotty to fight her new marks. As Grani heard the screams of the bounty hunters as they got eviscerated, she slunk deeper and deeper into the labyrinth. Quiet echoes of water dripping once more, resounding in her ears. Eventually, she comes across another bounty hunter, but he's pummeled into the ground, as if smashed by a heavy object. Here, she also looks up to see a blasted hole in the wall. At first, she worries that this is Scotty, but soon she sees the real culprit. Big Bob walking out of the blasted hole, along with him, a handful of reunion members. Without missing a beat, Big Bob explains that his bounty hunter brethren and himself became infected a few years ago. Forced to get by, living on scraps, they decided to join Reunion, but even then, they still couldn't get shelter or food. In their frustration, they left Reunion, moving place to place until they caught wind of the treasure, so Big Bob came to Dewville. With the treasure and his riches, they could move to Columbia, where as long as you have money, you can live a peaceful life, even own land, even if you're uninfected. This is why Big Bob needs the treasure, why he would go so far as to betray Grani and Carol. One of Big Bob's fellows sees someone coming from the cave's entrance and rushes over to stop them. Who else could it be? Big Bob and Grani stand off against each other, as well as with Scotty, the three of them exchanging glances as Big Bob's fellow stayed by his side. Big Bob flatly said he will fight to the very end if he has to. Scotty questions Grani, wondering if she really had allied with that Reunion. Grani ignores Scotty, asking Big Bob what happens if he takes all the treasure. Dewville still needs it. He points out that they will survive. It will be rough, but they will survive. Him and his brethren have no chance to survive without the treasure. He trusts Grani is not prejudiced against the infected, though he thinks Scotty is. Trying to get Grani to empathize with the infected's plight, he pleads Grani to tell him where Carol is. Grani says it's her mission to protect Carol and Dewville. She can't help the infected if they mean indirect harm to the village. Scotty says she doesn't even care about the treasure. She just wants Carol. Big Bob finds this even more disturbing, asking if Scotty is looking to drink her blood or something. He says he doesn't want to hurt Carol, he just wants the treasure. Scotty grows impatient, demanding to know where Carol is. Grani says Carol just wants to protect the village, and she needs the treasure to guarantee his safety. Big Bob insists again that he should have the treasure. They don't actually know how much there is with the treasure. His brethren might need all of it for their life in Columbia to work. Scotty snidely responds, saying that Reunion bounty hunters are just the same, wanting more and not having enough. The three of them go back and forth like this, again and again, over and over. Big Bob insists on the treasure, not Carol. Scotty wants Carol, not the treasure. Grani won't give up either. It's becoming clear that a fight is inevitable. Grani refuses to back down, but before it can even escalate, Carol is seen dragging a treasure chest from deeper in the cave, pulling it closer to the group. Big Bob throws an explosive at Carol, at which point Scotty immediately moves to protect Carol, shielding her with her own body. The stalemate in an instant ends, as Grani realizes that Scotty does not mean Carol any harm. She protected her. Scotty finally says that she just wants Carol for an answer that she holds. Befuddled, Grani asks why Scotty didn't say that sooner. Scotty says she didn't want anyone else to get entangled with her mission. This mission is extremely important to Scotty. Now realizing that Scotty doesn't mean to hurt Carol, Grani sides with Scotty. Grani says the two should work together now. Scotty doesn't want to, but she agrees, and the two confront Big Bob and his brother. The grunts all converge on Scotty and Grani. The Grani dodges most of the attacks that are thrown her way, while Scotty just strikes them down in the same overwhelming show of force that she's had all day, slamming a few into the ground, some smashed into the wall. The two take great pains to not actually kill anyone this time, landing decisive strikes that only leave the grunts incapacitated. Now, The two take turns landing feints and blows on Big Bob, who can barely just not hit Granny with his saw, or have his strikes parried by Scotty's blade. Eventually, Big Bob yields. His fellows said they can keep fighting, but he puts a stop to it. This conflict is over. If their fight is about survival, what good is it to fight to the death? Carol apologizes to Big Bob, but Dewville needs to have the treasure. But before Carol can say anything more, Scotty tells Carol to step away from the treasure. The key in her hand will kill her if she tries to unlock the chest. This sudden reveal leaves everyone stunned. Scotty explains that the key will cut open Carol's hand, drinking her blood. If it came in contact with someone who's not of current to blood, it would break instead. Scotty insists on the key being given to her. Carol refuses to hand it over, however. She's come this far. She has to get the treasure for her village now. Scotty recites the old saying that Carol had told Granny all the way back in the older man's home. Only those who fear not sacrifice and possess the true, dauntless bloodline of Kazimierz may open the path. Carol knew that there would be a sacrifice. She just didn't know it would cost her her life. But she already made this choice. She turns to the chest, key in hand, as she lines it up to slide into the keyhole, closing her eyes as she thinks about her father. Granny stops her, however, asking for the key. Carol gives it to her, reluctantly. Granny points out that the key isn't even that big, thinking it wouldn't be that much blood. Scotty then says that even though it's not too big, it's too much blood loss for an average person, so it's a fixed amount of blood. Granny declares she will open the chest, already sliding the key into the keyhole, turning it as her blood begins to pool inside of the key. Before it can open, however, Granny crumples into unconsciousness. Some bounty hunters in the cluster of dilapidated abandoned buildings converge on their captain, who appears quite disgruntled, holding his hands together. Across from him, at the mouth of their shoddy camp, stand Scotty and Granny, blade and spear brandished. Scotty expresses how annoying it is to have to stand clean out the rest of the bounty hunters. Granny reminds her that since Scotty got what she wanted out of the mission, now it was Scotty's turn to help Granny. Scotty wonders how Granny is even able to do this after having done that. Granny just says that's why Scotty is there. Duo lunge forward in the bright of the day, the azure sky crystal clear, just as that first day where the journey all began. After clearing out the group of bounty hunters, the duo meet up with Carol and head out to the forest north of Dewville. There, they see Big Bob and his fellows. The trio have Big Bob's share of the treasure in hand before handing it off to them. The villagers are not familiar with infected people, so Carol apologizes for them meeting here instead of in Dewville. Big Bob assures Carol that it's no issue at all. The fact that they're even getting the share of the treasure leaves him grateful to Carol. Scotty takes her leave, saying she'll go back to Rhode Island now that the bounty hunter issue is solved. Granny stays to handle some final things with Carol, the two of them turning to head back to Dewville. Granny offers Big Bob to come to Rhode Island for treatment. Big Bob also throws a coin in Granny's way, a Kazimierz coin, just like the one Granny got when she first arrived. The three of them wave each other off, the snow-capped mountains accompanying them to their departures. The languid aroma that hangs in the air for a moment will run away within the alpine breeze. Back on Rhode Island, the landship is rumbling along its travels. Noel pens a letter meant for Granny. She recounts the historical impact of the Kazimierz Knights and their treasures, explaining that the value of these treasures is not only monetary, there are also dangerous artifacts hidden away. These will likely spark interest from different organizations, including nations like Colombia. This will in turn have them send in bounty hunters hired by them to go to Dewville and retrieve the treasures. But Noel realizes that this is too much pressure to add to Granny's mission. She's confident that Granny will succeed. However, she remembers that there is something that Granny must absolutely be informed of. Granny is finally about to head off, finishing up with making sure the bounty hunters will no longer plague Dewville. Peace has been restored at long last. Carol asks Granny about Scotty. Granny says that she has already left. She says that because of Scotty's infamy, however, Dewville should be left alone for now. Carol is optimistic about new beginnings for Dewville, and offers Granny to come for next year's harvest season. Granny happily accepts. Before Grani sets off to return to Rhode Island, however, Carol gives Grani a letter that she just received. It's addressed to Dewville, but specifically requests to be given to Grani. Grani recognizes it's from Rhode Island. The weird addressal is just because Dewville is so remote. Grani reads the letter. It's from Noel. The letter warns her that Scotty is not on a mission in Dewville. She went there without permission. Grani is stunned, but she laughs at the irony. Carol is curious, but Grani doesn't explain, instead turning the letter into a paper herbal, showing Carol how far it sails into the sky. The woman in the medical bay of Rhode Island tosses and turns, her nun clothes clamping to her body in sweat, while the outer layer of it thrashes in her tosses. She pants. Her eyes shoot up violent as she also sat up in the medical bay, nearly hitting a footlight. She gasps for air for a moment, collecting herself before she looks up, seeing Scotty in the darkened corner, having waited for her to wake up. Spectre says she doesn't remember Scotty's name, but Scotty says to just treat her like any other Rhode Island operator. Spectre mentions the nightmare she was trapped in, seeing the fragments of her memories like shards in her consciousness. She could see the broken church of men arguing over what to do with a man, stuffing him into a sack, hanging him on a mast, even considering slitting his throat and tossing him into the ocean as a tribute to the hurricane. But remembering any of it too much, and those same fragments just vanish, and she plunges into the abyss of the deep sea, forgetting everything else. Scotty promises that she will be able to escape the torment soon. Spectre is skeptical, and questions if she can even trust Scotty. After all, Scotty has the stench of them, the smell of the deep sea, a familiar and abhorrent smell, the same place she's dragged into in her nightmares. Spectre asks for Scotty's name. Scotty gives it. Spectre asks why Scotty came here. No one is even supposed to come without Calcet's permission, since Spectre can just tear anyone to pieces if they come at a bad time. Scotty says she's afraid, just like anyone else, but she's used to fear. She has to leave now, but when she comes back, things should start to move forward. But Scotty tells Spectre she doesn't need to remember her, just like before. Spectre asks Scotty where she is going. Before Scotty leaves the medical bay, her back turned away from Spectre, she speaks in a low voice, to where the secret is buried, a place far, far away from you. In the medical bay, Calcet stood with a tablet in hand, running over the data she could see. Scotty opens the door and enters the room. Calcet glances at Scotty, asking her if she thought things through or if she impulsively left for Dewville. Scotty shows the key that she took from Carol after holding it out in her hand for Calcet to see. Calcet's gaze shifts to Scotty, telling her that she acted recklessly and without permission. Normally, Calcet does not pry into her operators' private affairs, nor does she care what they do in their free time, as long as they do not tarnish Rhode Island's reputation. She hopes then that Scotty's actions do not cost her her position as an operator. Scotty ignores these remarks, insisting that Calcet needs this key from Scotty, and Scotty needs information in exchange. Calcet wonders if the information Scotty wants is as worthless as the key. Scotty threatens to crush the key, having it be destroyed forever. Calcet returns with a threat of her own, her unamused demeanor shifting to being more serious. She knows that Scotty went to Dewville under the pretense of being on a mission, and even got into a conflict with a fellow operator. Grani didn't say anything officially for Scotty's sake, but Calcet, in fact, did not assign such a mission to Scotty. Calcet's eyes shift to look over the key again, realizing it's been filled with blood already. But she knows it's not Scotty's. Scotty would never spill blood on land. Scotty says it's Grani's blood. Calcet then assumes that Scotty forced her to spill this blood. Scotty doesn't deny this accusation, instead saying that she will repay Grani. Scotty calls the rock in her hand a key, a core, memory block. She didn't know what it was exactly, she just knew it was something Calcet wants. She took down notorious bounty hunters and their entire groups just to make sure she got this key. If any of them had gotten it, Calcet would not have been able to get this key anyway. Scotty then again says, she needs information, Calcet needs the key. Calcet finally rebukes, saying that she doesn't even need the key. As for Scotty, she's bound to Rhode Island, which means Scotty is bound to Calcet. She could get the key anyways if she asked Scotty for it. Scotty's desperate, however, demanding the information that Calcet had. Calcet voices her surprise. She never sees such aggression from Scotty, used to her lazy demeanor instead. The monitors beep and flip nearby them for a few moments, and Calcet's eyes light up in understanding. Calcet states plainly that the information Scotty wants is where Spectre's Originium nerve agent came from, the nerve agent that's suppressing her memories. Scotty's eyes grow wide, surprise filling them at Calcit figuring this out. Calcit speaks in Scotty's language. Algerian. Abyssal hunters are bound by blood, saying right after that there's nothing she doesn't know. Scotty relents the transaction, simply asking for the information that Calcit knows. Calcit agrees, on the condition that from now on, Scotty obeys her every order. Scotty agrees, as long as Calcit's information is worthwhile. Calcit reminds Scotty that she never goes back on her word.
Good day. Bob here. I'm writing this letter to you from a manor in the outskirts of Columbia. We've all been doing well, even though some problems never go away as the infected. Just being able to live with the sun shining upon our faces is more joy than we could ever have imagined. Thanks to the kindness of Grani and a little girl named Carol, who decided to leave us with the remainder of the treasure after repairing their village, I was able to settle down peacefully with my brothers. We already have everything we need to be self-sufficient, and we're even planning to try growing hops. This was all made possible by that Dewville treasure. That, of course, is an entirely different story. Real interesting, but I won't go into the details here. I've also slightly changed my views about some things, and I know you've long held your own opinions about this too. Just know that Reunion is not the only place that the infected can go. I know you'll be able to make the decision that is right for you. I miss you a lot. I hope that I will see you in Columbia one day. Bob. To Mudrock.
The individual reading this letter finishes, glancing over to their surroundings, seeing their fellow Sarkads march their way towards the lonely but beautiful Gothic city. The individual muttering to themselves, I'm glad to hear that.